Hi and welcome to O2 Life. My name is Evan Soroka and this is an O2 stretch practice for healthy backs. A big part of back issues actually doesn't have anything to do with the back at all. It has to do with what's going on in your legs. And so this practice will be emphasizing working on the fronts of the legs, the backs of the legs, the outer legs, and the inner legs. Not just stretching, but actually more strengthening these regions of the body. Creating strength in these regions of the body promotes circulation, and circulation promotes healing. Another aspect I want you to keep into consideration is this idea of neutral. So everything we'll be working with, for the most part, comes from a neutral pelvis or a neutral position with the spine. There will be some alterations where we do some postures that are not neutral, but we'll be applying them in a way that helps you if you're working with injuries as well. All right, let's begin on our backs. All right, so place your feet on the mat. The knees will be bent, and the feet are about hip bones width distance apart. This first movement we're working on is a pelvic tilt, so working between anterior, which is a forward tilt of the pelvis, and posterior, which is a backward tilt of the pelvis. And this is going to help you teach the body to cue into the abdominal contraction that promotes stability. So from here, take a few breaths in and out. And what you're going to perhaps notice is that when you inhale, naturally the curvature of your low back is increased. This is called lumbar lordosis. And as you exhale, naturally, as the abdomen draws in, the curvature of your low back is decreased. So just link with that subtlety of how your breath affects your spine. And now we'll begin to apply the movement. So on your inhale, disengage your pelvis. You'll tilt the pelvis forward, and I'm going to come back here behind Alexa and increase the curvature of your low back. On the exhale, draw the navel in and engage your abdominals and reduce the curvature of your back. As you inhale, increase. We're disengaging. On the exhale, engage. Now, a common thing that happens as one does this, we tend to be more hip flexor predominant, is a tendency, rather than using your core muscles and your glutes to do this movement, posterior engagement, is we squeeze our hip flexors. So just be mindful as you're doing this that you're not overly using your hips. That a big part of the engagement is sourced from deep within your core abdominal muscles as well as the gluteals. I often tell my students, if they're having a hard time accessing this, is to try a little bit less. Good, that looks great. So now engage and maintain the engagement as you lift both of your feet up off the ground so the knees are stacked perpendicular. And for this next exercise, we're not going to focus so much on breathing in and out, rather maintaining core engagement. So you can place your hands at the pubic bone, so at the frontal hip bones, and then you'll draw your fingers in about 2 inches and down 2 inches. And this is a great place to begin to feel where your transverse abdominis connects. So from here, go ahead and inhale. And as you inhale, holding your breath, I want you to engage the deepest core muscles. It might feel initially like you're pushing your belly out, but it's really a deep engagement. I'm going to take your hands just a little bit lower, as if someone were to drop something heavy on your abdomen and you were to feel that engagement. You sense that there? So you might be holding your breath, but I want you to have a slow trickle to your breathing as we move the legs here. So now, maintaining the engagement, lower your right heel onto your mat and just tap the heel down and then lift it back up. Try to maintain the engagement throughout the movement. Now you'll alternate and lift back up. So continue from side to side and just study your own movement patterns. If you can in fact move your legs while also maintaining that core stability. If you're challenged with this at all, I'm going to recommend that you either place a block under your feet and reduce the range of motion, or even just reduce the range of motion onto itself, doing like a third of the movement or half of the movement, just as far as you can go without losing that core activation. Oh, it's work, right? All right. Great. And now relax your feet onto the ground. You could also hit pause on this video and do 3 sets of 10. I find like that is great number to work with here. So next, we'll be working on both stretching and strengthening the hamstrings. So let's start with, we'll do the right leg first. So actually switch your legs for me. So we'll keep, yeah, exactly. So the right leg's going to extend forward and you're going to flex your heel. Now, these mats that we have are amazing. They're very sticky. So the stickier your mat, the harder it's going to be for you to do this movement and with the resistance. So if it's really challenging, you can get off of your mat and do this with a wood floor. It'll be a little bit more slippery and easy to facilitate. Now from here, go ahead and bend your right knee just a little bit. And what you're going to do is glide your right heel in towards you and feel right up into the hamstring attachment, a contraction, and then you'll progressively lift the right heel up towards the ceiling, straighten the leg, maintaining that core integration, lower the leg to hover onto the ground, so straight leg, and then from there, repeat bending the knee and pulling the leg in slowly, feeling the activation right beneath your gluteal muscles. Slow as you can go. Now, there's not really a right or wrong to whether this is inhale or exhale. Just as long as you can feel like you are breathing, but consciously. Good. Nice and slow. Drag the heel in. Wonderful. And then just relax the foot. And we're going to go to the other side. So extend the left leg forward. And ever so gently bend the knee, drag the heel close to the buttocks, lift the leg up towards the ceiling, flex the ankle, and then lower the leg, reach the leg away from you, and repeat. It's like a slow bicycle. This is a great way to rework your gait. I often think that when we're working with the back, as I mentioned at the beginning of this practice, that it's about working with the back onto itself, but our feet, our legs are connected to our pelvis, and our pelvis orients our spine in the direction of movement. So starting by working with our legs and our hips here are key to the stability of the back. Great. Okay, and then just rest for a second. Notice the sensations and where you feel the sensations in your body, because those sensations are circulation, and that circulation is healing. All right. So from here, we're going to do actually a dynamic bridge. And the way that we're going to do this bridge is a little bit different. It's on the heels. So Alexa's going to flex her heels. And you want the heels directly under the knees, if not a little bit further away from you. Now, as you exhale here, I'd like you to engage that work of the pelvic floor we've done. And then from there, actually, you're going to lift the hips up. Feel the work in your hamstrings and glutes. And then slowly lower down. Go ahead and disengage, so tilt the pelvis forward, relax. And then exhale, engage, tilt the pelvis back, and lift the hips up. Good. And then lower actually on the inhale. And disengage, tilt the pelvis forward. On your exhale, engage, tilt the pelvis back, engage your glutes and hamstrings, and lift the hips up, even squeezing the knees a little bit closer together. So go ahead and continue lowering on the inhale. Now we have a tendency to hyperextend our low back, especially when working with postures like bridge pose, such as this. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is less is more. You don't need to lift up very high to get the effect of this practice. And as you're lowering, sensing that elongation in your low back as well. Good. Cueing into the origin of the movement as you lift up, and that's that core activation as well as gluteal activation. That's so key for our back stability. Good. Why don't you stay there, squeeze the inner thighs, and just maintain a few smooth breaths. I find that the bigger the breath for people, the less that they're able to maintain their core activation. So for today's practice, it doesn't need to be a very big, deep breath, just smooth and consistent. That's it. Pressing into the inner heels and squeezing the inner thighs. Wonderful. And then slowly release. Awesome. Next, roll over onto your side. Great. And so we're going to work with some clamshells here. You can either have the arm forward as Alexa does, or prop yourself up a little bit higher onto your elbow, or even place a block under the head. Something like that. Maybe a little bit lower. There you go. That works too. You want to be comfortable. Now you're going to bring your knees in so that the hips are stacked. That the left hip is stacked over the right hip. And keeping the feet together, we'll work on some clamshells. So we'll lift the top knee up and lower it down. You can correlate this with your breath or not. All the while, maintain a little bit of that core activation that we felt during the very beginning of the practice with our pelvic tilts. And another thing you can begin to do here, even if it feels comfortable for you, is to place your opposite hand on the top hip and that lower gluteal. So even go a little bit lower for me, exactly. And so what we're accessing is the gluteus medius region. And this is an important region for the stability of our hips and in turn our back. Yeah, so with your fingers you can palpate and feel where there's activation. It's a tiny muscle, but so important. And I would say the majority of people that I work with, myself included, really are challenged by activating this muscle. Usually it's one side more than the other. So now, keeping the hips stacked, we're going to do the opposite. So the knees are going to stay together, and you're going to lift the top foot up. So now you're internally rotating the thigh, and then lower. So it's really important as we work with our back to move our thigh bone both outward and inward. And there's not a lot of yoga postures, if you look at them, that create this internal rotation that Alexa is doing right now. So this is a great way to work with it. I think Gomukhasana and Garudasana are some of the only ones I can think of. Okay, so now you're going to keep the knees together and the foot up, and what you're going to work on now is straightening the leg. Yep, and then bending the knee and bring the knees together. So you'll continue that, but as you continue, try to keep the hips stacked. You might notice that the top hip moves back. So you're keeping the hips stacked, yeah, and really isolating the outer leg. Our goal may be to feel a burn, but it's not necessarily the focal point. Even just a little bit of activation will be beneficial. Okay, great. One more time. And then relax. All right, so switch sides. And we'll begin with clamshells. The hips are stacked. Good. You're just lifting and lowering the top knee. Be mindful that you're in a neutral pelvis. For many of us that tend to be more anteriorly oriented, neutral actually feels more like posterior. So engaged, and that way you can isolate the leg and rather work with the strengthening of the outer hip instead of your back, your low back principally taking the brunt of the movement. So we're avoiding that with a core stability. And then knees together, you'll lift the top foot up. And lower it down. It's my favorite one. Yeah. And study the movement of your hip. Does it hike up? Does it move back? Play around with it. If you need visual cue, look at your hip and just take note. What are your patterns? Can you be aware of? So much of yoga is self-awareness. And I'm a firm believer that anything can be yoga if we're applying present awareness to it. Whether that's hiking, biking, being a parent, being in this world. Good. Last one, you'll keep the foot up and the knees together. And now straighten the leg. Yeah. And return to the starting position. I'll feel the outer hip firing up. Neutral pelvis, neutral spine. Good. Just two more. A little bit lower. Yeah. Awesome. And then release. Good work. Come up to hands and knees. All right, so find yourself in a tabletop position, all fours, knees stacked under hips, wrists stacked under the shoulders. Engage, so you'll go from that anterior to posterior tilt, and you'll maintain. So you can see Alexa's got a beautiful neutral spine, and now she's going to lift her right leg up and back. Yeah, and she's going to work on straightening the leg here. Now the tendency is to roll to the side a little bit, so I want you to find balance and center. Now if you feel strong enough, you can reach the opposite arm forward. Otherwise, keep the hand down. You're going to get the same benefit from this. Then release, lower the hand and the knee, and we'll switch the legs. So opposite leg back, flex the ankle, optionally arm forward, only as far as you don't begin to collapse into the lower abdomen. Yes, good. And then release. Alternating. Reaching back, hips level. Big gluteal activation as well as core activation. And what's really amazing about a posture like this, which you look at Pilates, yoga, physical therapy is very often prescribed for back issues is this asymmetrical quality. Because we are asymmetrical beings, not one side of our body is the same as the other. This provides us with an opportunity to isolate each side, to work with weaknesses, and to work with this diagonal line that crosses the body. Right? Our muscles are not just isolated to muscles, to one muscle. Everything is connected by fascia, and the fascial lines, they're not just linear, they cross the body. Okay, you tired? You want to do one more? That's it, good. Okay, so go ahead and rest in child's pose for a moment. Just get a little bit of rest there. All right, now stand up on your knees. We're going to work with some lunges here, maintaining neutral again in the pelvis. So this is not going to be about how big of a lunge you can do, but rather how well and how integrated you can be. So go ahead and step your left foot forward, and you can do the same leg here. Yeah, great. And I'm going to have you please tuck your back toes under your foot. And so what we're looking for is this really nice, lovely alignment of the head with the pelvis and the knee. Good. Now, keeping the back toes tucked under, engage the pelvis. Find that neutral pelvis. And you're going to slowly lift your back knee up off the ground and come up into a full lunge, but you'll maintain a slight micro bend in the knee. And you can keep your hands at the hips if you like. Good. And then lower the knee again to the ground. And I want you to lift up again. And we'll do that just a few times. That's it. So by maintaining just a little bend in the back knee, this is going to help support more of a neutral pelvis. The tendency when we straighten the leg is to tilt the pelvis too far forward, and it can put quite a bit of pressure on the low back. So come up one more time. You're going to find that neutral and hold it here. Now extend your arms up towards the ceiling. And on your exhale, bend your elbows. And like a lat pull, you'll pull your elbows in by your sides. And we're going to just, rather than back bend, really focus on length. Good. So reach the arms up. And I'm just bringing her ribs in. We all have this tendency to flare the ribs out. But our focal point today is not so much on back bending, but on this concept of neutral, and bring my hand here so she can bring awareness to that squeezing of her shoulder blades. One more time. Good, because this is quite challenging. And then bring your hands back to your hips and lower the knee down. And you can bring your knees back together. All right, let's switch the legs. Tuck the back toes under. So this is a great way to work with the asymmetries as well, and to see where perhaps you have a predominant leg or a predominant side that you step forward with, and working with those asymmetries is going to help to create more balance as well as in your back. So from here, neutral pelvis, core engaged, lift your back knee up, come up into full lunge, and then bend the knee, lengthen as you lower. Yep. So just micro breaths here. Very shallow. But make sure you're not holding your breath. It will make this even more challenging than it already is. Good. One more time now. Go ahead and stay. Lengthen the low back. Reach your arms up. And maintaining neutral with the pelvis and spine, bend your elbows, pull them in, good, and inhale, reach up. So another orientation with this is mobilizing your upper back, your thoracic spine. It is the densest region of the spine for good reason, because encased behind it is your heart and your lungs, the most vital of your organs. But also what we also find that when there's tension and lack of mobility in the upper back, the low back takes the brunt of the movement, or as well as the neck, because they're more flexible regions of the spine. So by mobilizing this region, potentially we can help to reduce the overworking of the low back and neck. Okay, go ahead and bring your hands to your hips and release. You can step your front leg back. Just take a few resting breaths there. Ooh, I feel for you. That's warming. That's warming. So now transition to standing. And you'll remember that we were working with the clamshells and accessing these outer, the glute med and men. We're going to work with a variation of chair pose here that's also going to help to activate this. So just look down at your feet, assess that your feet are parallel. And then you're going to bring your hands to the backs of your legs. And then sit back like there's a chair behind you, and you're going to glide your hands down to your ankles. Good. And then slowly, as you inhale, glide your hands up the legs, come up, and as you do so, to standing, straightening legs, push your feet energetically out. It's like you're ripping your yoga mat in half, and that's going to awaken these areas of the body, and squeeze your glutes at the top. So when you're ready, you'll sit back again, weight centrally located, and then slowly lean back, press the feet out, and squeeze the glutes at the top. You don't need a lot of these. It's quite effective. Pressing out, lifting the chest, activating and squeezing. Let's do 2 more. Good. Yes. Oh. One more time. Let's bring this hip back just a little. Yep. That's it. And then squeeze. All right. And then relax. Great. So step back to the center of your mat. And let's just take a moment to be neutral in Tadasana. All of the Hatha Yoga postures are based off of Tadasana, this idea of stability and ease, but also neutral. So feel that your weight is balanced directly over your ankles. The toes are open. The inner thighs are lifting up. Even your quadriceps and the glutes that you just activated are engaged. The low back lengthens. The arms reach down. The ears lift up. And there's this balance of pressing down as well as rising up. Feel the breath in the body. This stability and semblance of symmetry. And keeping that in mind, that every posture is based off of this one. We're going to go into our next posture, which is a variation of a one-legged deadlift. It's kind of like akin to a warrior 3 variation with a slight bend in the knee. So you'll bring your hands, your left hand to your hip rather. The right arm's just going to be free by your side. You'll step your left foot forward just about a foot. Maintain a slight bend in your left knee. And you're going to pull your left hip back as you reach the right arm down and begin to lift your right leg up off the ground. Yeah, it's like you're almost trying to bring your right hand towards your big toe. And then slowly come all the way up, pulling your left hip back, come all the way up to standing. And then we'll repeat that. So reaching down, draw your left hip back. And then slowly as you come up, squeeze your hamstring and glute, come all the way up as you stand tall. Just 2 more like that. Bending your left knee, sit your left hip back. Good. Slowly lift up. Activating. Last one here. reaching, lift it back. And slowly all the way up. Good. Step your feet together. Or press pause and do a few more. We'll go to the other side. So the right hand at the right hip. Gentle bend in the right knee. And you'll reach down. If you've done this video multiple times, what I'm going to encourage you to do if you're feeling strong is you could even hold a little bit of weight here in the opposite hand, 5 to 8 pounds if you're feeling strong, and to work with this as well, extra weight. But doing this well, even without the weight, it's not easy. Pull the right hip back as you come all the way up. One more time. Wonderful. Yep. Uh-huh. That's the side, huh? That's the side to work on. Okay, good. Just pause in Tadasana once again. Even close your eyes. And link with the stability of your body, as well as this semblance of ease, space, mobility. Every pose is a beautiful marriage of these two opposing forces, stability and mobility, strength and flexibility, effort and ease. All right, good. From here, please lower to hands and knees. And actually, we're going to lie on the side onto the forearm. Now, if you need some extra support for your forearm, you can fold your mat in half. And you know what we're going to do is I'm going to have you bring your butt back, Alexa, just a little bit. Yeah, so you're at a slight hinge point, and we're going to move in and out of this posture. So she'll place her top hand at the hip once again to feel that activation. And so what she's going to do is she's going to push into her bottom forearm, lift the hips up, come up into a modified side plank, and squeeze your bottom hips. And now to come out of it, I want you to hinge at your hips and sit your butt back a little bit. Good. And then we'll repeat that. So you'll push down, lift up. You'll find this is more hips than it is shoulders, but you can slide the shoulder blade down a little bit and then hinge at the hips and sit back a little bit. And so the reason why we're doing the hip hinge is to help you begin to access even more of those outer hip stabilizers and core stabilizers. Good. Why don't you hold that a little bit? Good. And then set back. We're just add a little bit of a hold, maybe 3-4 seconds. Let's do a few more. Lift, hold. The head can be even more relaxed here. I'm smiling because I know how challenging this is, but I also know how good it is for your body. If you do this every day before you work out, before you start your day, or even at the end of the day, it can be a great preventative strategy as well as intervention strategy. One more for good measure. Good. Okay. And then release. Let's go to the other side. Great. So little hip hinge, shoulder blades down the back, press down and lift up more from your glutes than from your shoulders. And then you'll sit your butt back, reach it back and lower down. Lift up, pull the shoulder blades down, feel the latissimus dorsi as well. Also this area under your armpits, great stabilizers for your shoulders. But even though we're focusing on the glutes, these outer glute regions, as well as the abdominals, the quadratus lumborum in the back. erector spinae, and a lot of deep muscles as well below that. Good. Add just a little pause if you're feeling strong as you come up. You can even pull your bottom elbow towards your hip and feel the retraction of the shoulder blade. It helps to fire up the side body just a little bit more. You got 2 more in you. Yes, nice and even through the hips. Awesome. Good. Okay, release. Ooh. Stand up on your knees. So we'll counter pose for that little bit of dynamic movement. Vajrasana. In the middle of your mat, reach your arms wide and up. Exhale, bend forward, sweep the arms wide and behind you. Inhale, open the arms wide and up. And exhale, bending forward. So yes, this is true. This is a forward bend. I'm trying to keep it as neutral as possible, but if you're experiencing an acute back injury, for instance, what you can do is even take your arms out of the picture or place like a chair or a block so you don't have to lower as far. That's a great way to avoid too much flexion. Great. All right. And then rest for a second. So for the next posture, you may need a block. And if you don't have a block, what you can do is just put a pillow between your legs or even roll your mat up and practice this next posture without a mat on your back. So we're going to start lying on the back and actually more on the side. That's it. So Alexa's going to roll to the left side, and she'll place the block in between the thighs. Yeah. And so you can bring your palms together. We're going to work with a little bit of rotation. I mentioned at the beginning of this practice that we would be doing some things that were not quite neutral, but this is going to be done in a very safe way. What we're going to focus on is keeping the hips stacked and actually pressing the top knee forward rather than displacing the top hip back, and this can be irritating to the sacrum. And also by doing this, it's going to help us to access more of the upper back where we're just tighter. I heard this interesting statistic that we have less nerve endings in our upper back than we do in like one of our toes. So keeping that into consideration, we want to create more awareness in the upper back. So from here, take your right arm and you're going to reach it overhead. And you can look at your thumb, and now from there, take the arm behind you and you're going to open into twist as you press your top knee forward, and then from there return to the starting position. Actually, you'll take the arm around and then across. Sorry. There you go. All right, so take the top arm, right arm overhead, open into the twist as you press your right knee forward. Good. And you might notice that by inhibiting the movement, you're actually creating a deeper stretch and opening in the upper back. Yes. Really good. You can follow your thumb with your gaze if you like. There you go. And just pay attention to where in your upper back you're creating that space. You can even send your breath there. Let's do one more. Awesome. Okay, good. And then we'll switch sides. Let me grab this for you. So I like to have a right angle with my legs. Good. Stacking the hips, pressing the top knee forward. Extend the left arm overhead, gazing at the thumb. Open into the twist. And bring the palms back together. It's a very circular movement. It's nice to inhale as you reach the arm overhead and exhale as you open into the twist. Don't forget to press the top knee forward and inhibit the pelvic movement and really encourage a spinal movement. Great. Twists and forward bends do get a bad rap in terms of back health, especially for disc issues. But I find that this kind of rotation is relatively safe because there is quite a bit of stability, and we're not looking for maximal range of motion, but just to inquire and to just create some space in these areas that are less mobile. Let's just do 2 more. That's good. So good. And then you'll release. You can remove the block and lie on your back. That's it. Please hug your knees into your body. Stretch your back. Good. Now slide your hands behind your knees and keep pressing your sacrum down. Just stretch your heels to the ceiling. Straighten your legs. And then exhale, bend the knees, and you're just going to pull the legs towards you as you lengthen the low back. So try not to curl the tailbone up. Straightening the legs, flexing the heels, pressing the sacrum down, and then bending the knees. As you bend the knees, you'll feel that posterior tilt. Try to maintain that neutral pelvis as you straighten the legs. Good. Stay there and place your hands on top of your knees. And you'll straighten your elbows. And we're going to just do some circles with opposite legs. So take the legs wide, back in, bending the elbows together. Great. Promoting some fluidity here in the hips. And switch directions of the circles. Wide, back together. Wonderful. Now you'll rest. Place your feet on the ground. Recommend supporting your legs with something. We're going to use blocks. You could use some pillows or even a bolster. Turn your palms up. To begin the process of relaxation, please direct both your inhale and exhale into the soft part of your abdomen. So as your body inhales, allow your abdomen rather than your chest to expand, to soften, to relax. The exhale is more passive. On the exhale, the abdomen just falls progressively in towards the spine. As the body inhales, the abdomen rises, the abdominal muscles relax, the hips relax, the back relaxes. Exhale passively. Watch as the navel just drops in towards the spine. Each inhale, there's a softening, a relaxing. Each exhale, an inherent feeling of stability. Now link with the moment when your inhale becomes the exhale. And when the exhale becomes the inhale. Relax all effort, all muscular contraction. You are totally effortless. And when we are effortless, we are strong. When we are effortless, the body does what it's intended to do, to heal. Please feel free to stay here in Shavasana as long as you like. Whenever you are ready, you can return to your day. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Evan, joining us with O2 Life. I hope to see you soon. Namaste.